What's going on, Frank?
That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been asked this question at least 3 times in the past week, so I figured this is a perfect topic for today's stream. One of the biggest ones, first of all, so Refugium is obviously the most common one. That's nice and easy. You have a big chamber in your sump. You can throw a bunch of algae in there, let it grow, and as it starts to grow well, you can pull out a handful, and everything's all good. Now, there's certain scenarios where a refugium doesn't always work. For one, if you have a little small nano tank, or maybe you have an all-in-one system, or you just don't have space in your sump. So there's a ton of different scenarios where it can be an issue to have a refugium in there. Okay, so one sub T K down, T65 gallon reef. You want slowly going in, the collabs. Okay, so the main reason to use not a standard refugium is usually because of space restrictions. Now, with a standard refugium, ideally if you have too small of an area, you might not get a ton of benefit out of it, where if it's a really big area, then you're going to get a lot of nutrient export out of it. So space is by far one of the biggest things that generally seems to be the issue if it's successful or not. Now, the next one is Chaeto Reactors. I know a lot of people have DIY'd those. They do sell kits, and like Marine Depot, actually, there's a link to one in the description as well, which I found on their site, which looked kind of cool. So I built my own DIY one, which wasn't hard to do either. That worked very well, and one of the big reasons that I originally did that was just to make space. In my sump, I want to turn that refugium into a frag rack, so I'm like, okay, Chaeto Reactor is perfect solution. And now there's those scenarios where if you have an all-in-one tank, you don't have space in your sump, or maybe you just have a little tiny sump and you don't have room for refugium, then a Chaeto Reactor could be an excellent solution because you can have that beside your sump, hanging out the back of your tank, all these different areas. So it gives you a lot more options. You are like a kid that's so distracted.
I've got this proper stupid laptop, right? It's like the camera's at the bottom. It's like, what's it doing down? I couldn't find it. I was looking all around the screen to see where my camera was because I was looking at the picture, thinking, I can't work out where I am.
Oh, nice.
All right. I know where I am now. I'm down there.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes.
I'm just watching. Ravenclaw, what is up? What is up, T-Bass? A couple different people. I missed you guys earlier. Okay. So Chaeto Reactor would be the next easiest one. There's stuff like the Arid Reactor, the Pax Bellum, which are the big, not so cheap commercial solutions. They do work well. They have very intense light in the middle, most of them, and usually the Chaeto grows all around it. Some of them I know they're white, and then it'll kind of reflect the light back, and that works pretty well. So if you do not have space for a decent sized refugium, that is a good solution to go with, or one of the smaller DIY kits is another great way to do it, like a nano or an all-in-one. Now, the next big one on the list would be an Algae Truf scrubber. Now, similar to a turf scrubber, if you don't have space in your sump, a turf scrubber is another great solution because you can have it either in your sump, like some of them are very compact and narrow, or you can mount it above your sump. So it's a good way to deal with it if you don't have proper space in the area. Now, the other question I've been asked a ton lately is kind of the difference between Chaeto and hair algae. So hair algae is a much simpler form of an algae. So in general, it grows a lot quicker, which means you can export more nutrients for a small space size. So generally, they're more efficient for their size. Now, another kind of cool thing about hair algae is it will actually absorb ammonia. So in like a big fish-only system or something like that, then you're actually going to help remove ammonia and other stuff that's potentially going to be higher than a full reef system with lots of live rock in it. So a few different kind of things to consider there, and a few different benefits and pros and cons to each one. Is changing.
Well, that's also why you try not to put your aquarium lights on. I can't find the camera for this. When you do your initial cycle, because when you do your initial cycle, you input a lot of fresh ammonia into the tank, and because algae also likes to eat ammonia, that's why you end up with loads of algae when you first start a tank, and then you get rid of it, and you don't have any bacteria. You have another ammonia spike, and you can potentially kill your fish.
Yep. Good call. So lights off when you're cycling your tank, and if your lights are on and there's nothing in there but nutrients, you're just asking for algae to grow in there. So save yourself the hassle and keep those lights off while you're cycling. Use my RO for top off and Red Sea saltwater for changes, but I can't figure out why it's popping. Why was popping? That was a question for you from Dan. Now, the other big thing when it comes to the different reactors is how much maintenance it is. So Refugium is going to be more the lazy reefer style. It's the least amount of work because if it grows too much, it doesn't really matter. You can just leave it in there, eventually pull it a few chunks. It's not going to be, unless it's blocking flow or something like that, it's not going to be a huge issue. Now, if it goes to with a Chaeto reactor, I find those like I could leave it for about a month before I'd finally have to pull it out. That one, the kind of cool thing is like it would be probably would be limiting after a certain point, but the log will get denser and denser. And then if you looked at the thumbnail for this, it was literally a big log of Chaeto, which is always fun to empty out just because it's cool to see growing that big dense thing. When it comes to a turf scrubber, that one, at least in my scenario, it seemed to be about every, I'm going to say 10 to 14 days that I'd have to give it a good scrubbing. So every bi-weekly is kind of the maintenance on that one. So back to Refugium. So we were talking, that's the easier kind of lazy reefer style. Now, if you have a little tiny one, it might not have a lot of output. Like, yes, you can use a little $5 CFL light, stuff will grow, but you might not get a big pH boost. It's not going to grow very fast. So a few different things to consider on that aspect. Is it Seymour? You can come on a little bit if you want. All right, Seymour. Actually, Seymour, do you want to jump in? I know you've used many different methods. Quit petting Devin's head. Nice.
Hold on, I don't know what, because I'm not looking at the actual stream because I've got really poor internet, so I've closed everything that doesn't need to be on. So I've only got the actual chat. I can only see the chat, can't see the stream.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, let's open it up a bit tonight here. I think good old Seymour wants to join. Give me one sec. I know he's played with many different methods, so give me 1 second. I'll see if I can invite you. You're going to be hidden for a second.
Is that working? Does that look cool?
No, you're on the wrong side. You're on the wrong side. I'm going to hide you for 1 second, though. We'll invite Seymour. Because I know Seymour, like me, has played with many different methods. So he'll be a good one to pull in. Seymour, I'm going to send you a quick message on Facebook. Or hang on, so I got you on there. Okay, so with Refugiums, now a couple downsides to Refugium is generally you need a decent light. You don't need it, but I'd highly recommend it. If you don't have proper lighting, it will still work, but you won't be getting as much benefit as you could be getting from it. So that's one thing to kind of consider with that. Now, one of the other downsides, sometimes your Chaeto, your algae, and your stuff can leave its refugium area. It can get sucked into other chambers, which could be your skimmer or return pumps, blowing around your tank. So there is that potential. You can do stuff by like putting a sponge or something in there to help prevent it. Now, the one other downfall is if your light is too high, you're trying to get a lot of spread. You could potentially be growing algae on like your skimmer, your reactors. Your sump's not going to be as pristine because you're going to have core line growing on stuff, and it's going to be a bit more maintenance. So basically, all of these methods have their pros and cons to an extent. Now, in terms of lighting, with a standard Refugium, more definitely gives you more bang for your buck. I mean, there's that point of diminishing returns where it's too much and you might just kill out your algae. But in general, like a $5 CFL light will give you, it'll grow it. But if you have like a 40 watt or a 50 or a 90 watt LED light, it's a lot more juice. The biggest thing that I've noticed, like not just the Chaeto growth, but you also get a lot more of a pH boost from it, which I know a lot of people are generally looking for that.
I've seen a massive difference in my Refugium since replacing the light. I've always more or less always had a Refugium. I've never used like a reactor or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used, Amazon lights, which are, hydroponics lights or CFL bulbs and everything else. And I've got growth, but when you see people on Facebook or, any, social media, and they're always the same, like week on week on week, they're harvesting, they're giving it away, they're throwing it in the bin and everything. And I wasn't getting that. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And then, I've ended up getting a new light, which is obviously it's just a little bit more of an expensive light. And I've seen, boom, I'm like weekly now I'm harvesting my Refugium, and it's like there is no other changes because my tank has been, tip-top stable for God knows how long now. So the only change that has happened has been the light. And since then, my nitrates, I've always had nitrates as 25 and above. So 25 or 50, anywhere in between. It's always been that way since I've been a reefer. Never been any lower.
Mm-hmm.
And currently I'm running a nitrate level of 2.
Oh, really? That's like
So
a
it's
record.
like, oh man, it scared me actually because I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it down here.
Is it too low?
I'm not
Is it
used
too
to it
low?
down here.
Oh,
Yeah. So from personal
yep.
experience, investing in the light, the Kessel, what is it, the H380 or
Mm-hmm.
the Kessel hydroponic light. Obviously, I use the Z Light one. These lights I've found. I think Seymour as well. He used the Kessel one,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he had really good results with that one.
Yep.
So I think it's a good investment. It's not a purchase. I don't feel the light. I think it's an investment, just like your aquarium light, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing to consider too, if you look at the aquarium light, a lot of people spend a lot of money on the aquarium lights, and that's a lot of light up there. So you want to have something that can compete with the light above your tank. So in the reverse cycle, or if you're trying to get rid of algae, it's having algae is going to grow where the most light is in general, right?
Yes, definitely. That's
Yep.
it. You're never gonna out compete it with a 10 watt spotlight that you put in your garden. You know what I mean?
Yep. Now, I can't share this one yet, but I am beta testing a new Refugium light, which I'm kind of excited for. So within like a day or two, I instantly see my pH creep up higher and everything. So that's kind of exciting. So that'll probably be a video in a
Very
few
nice.
weeks once it's official and I've tested it some more. So that's pretty good.
Okay.
Seymour, welcome. I see you snuck
Hello.
in.
Hello, sir.
Now, you're as bad as me in testing many different devices. I know you've tried the Chaeto Reactors and different Refugium lights, and so what's been your favorite so far? What have you used?
I like a refugium. I think hands down, a refugium with a good grow light is the best because I think it gives you more flexibility. Like I like pods and microfauna
Mm-hmm.
and bristle worms and all those things you can grow in a refugium.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I enjoy that. Um, if you don't harvest a refugium, as often, I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility to be lazy. You can walk
Mm-hmm.
by every week and just grab a little bit of a handful and throw it away. While a
Mm-hmm.
Chaeto reactor, that thing, it grows aggressive but runs out of space. I mean, I don't think any of us would have like a 15, 20-inch diameter Chaeto reactor because that would be massive.
Mm-hmm.
So we usually use the 6 to 8 inch ones, which when they grow and they're full, they don't usually absorb nutrients anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to clean them.
Yep.
You have to get the seals tight when you're emptying them. Make sure you don't leave any Chaeto within the seals or they
Mm-hmm.
leak. So
Mm-hmm.
my preference is always going to be a refugium if possible.
Yep.
I mean, I use the Pax Bellum when space was an issue,
Mm-hmm.
but I prefer a refugium with like a grow light.
Yep.
You don't have to use a Kessel,
Mm-hmm.
but there's I think the one Mike's using, I think the one you're testing, if I think what you're thinking, the one you're testing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've been doing recently is every time I come across like a grow light, I take a snapshot of the spectrum with my Senai.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm building up quite a library of like the PAR numbers and the spectrum numbers of like Senai light. So eventually,
Yep.
eventually I'll do like a video on that. But I think a decent grow light. It doesn't have to be like a Kessel.
Yep.
I mean, they all have their benefits. Some of them are loud. Some of them don't have good lenses. Some of them don't have good spread.
Mm-hmm.
But a good grow light with good spectrum, sized properly, Refugium, that's always going to be my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Now, you hit on a big thing earlier, which was you didn't have space for Refugium. So I think a big benefit of Chaeto Reactors or turf scrubbers and the other things are if you don't have a big chamber, a big space for a Refugium. There is definitely like a tiny one isn't going to give you a lot of benefit, right? If you're using Chaeto and Refugium, you want to have a decent sized space to actually get good benefit from it. So I think that's a one good key point you kind of touched on there.
Yeah, you're not going to run like a giant tank on like a tiny, just like you're not going to run a giant tank on a tiny refugium.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to run a giant tank on a small Chaeto reactor. Like it's not reasonable to expect that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not. So it has to be sized appropriately.
No, 100% agree with you on that one.
Now, one thing I'm going to say is Mike and I are running like the Triton method, which I think one of the things it does is it includes like things. I don't remember. I'm
Okay.
drawing a blank to what the elements are.
Yep. So there's probably others, but actually this is another thing I want to throw out there. When I see people sometimes do Chaeto Reactors or other things, because they are very concentrated light source. It generally grows like mad for a couple months and then it kind of stunts the growth. When that happens, it's usually because you're running out of things like iron in your water. Now, when you're talking, you can dose iron. They do make supplements for refugiums. I know PAX or one of those companies actually sell one with the reactor. With the Triton method, includes some of those nutrients in there, and then the other methods, or whatever ones that are refugium, I think that's other methods. That one they don't have all those extra algae growth nutrients in there. So that's one of the big differences.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it does help. And like you said, you are right. Is the great thing about Triton is for that reason. If you're using the Triton method one, not other methods, and you are utilizing a refugium, it just helps the refugium just keep going and going day in and day out. Whereas, like you said, if you're using it, like say for example an algae reactor, then yeah, sooner or later it is going to stall because it hasn't got everything it needs. It's got the light, yes, it's got the nutrients, yes, but it's not got the other things.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a good thing to note that.
Yeah, there probably is more to it, but I know iron is the main one that people tend to run out of in their water.
Well, I'll tell you, when you buy a Pax Bellum, and I didn't realize this until I got a Pax Bellum, it includes iron and molybdenum.
What is molybdenum?
Molybdenum.
Molybdenum.
I can't pronounce it.
That's
but
fair.
Those two are things that you definitely, the instructions come with and give you like a dosing regimen to start with. So I think at least those two. I'm not sure what's in Triton, but I know iron and molybdenum.
Molybdenum. Yeah, something like that.
So it's at least those two. I think iron is definitely one. I don't know what the others are, but I would say iron, molybdenum.
Okay. In the chat, John just asked a good question. Can much nutrient export become dangerous with undetectable phosphates and nitrates? So I don't know if you could strip it enough to be dangerous, but there definitely is negative impacts of having too low of those nutrients. Now, phosphate and nitrate is also taken up by the coral, so it's good to have a certain level. Now, I generally find in super low nutrients, you get the lighter, more pastel type colors, where you get the more deeper, richer colors with higher nutrients. Now, if you're running, this can become dangerous if you're running very high lighting and a high elk, really pushing the growth, but don't have the nutrients to support that. That's when like next to nothing for nutrients can hurt you. So if you're really trying to up your elk, up your lighting, like really hammer out that growth, then you need some nutrients as well for the corals so they don't get stunted or have an issue with that one.
And the thing as well with running zero is if you're running zero, you don't know where you are. If you're running zero, then you don't know if you're literally the tank is zero or you've got the corals are taking up what they need and there's no more left or whatever. So that's why it's good to just have like maybe even 1 or 2 phosphates, 0.03 phosphates or 1 or 2 nitrates, just so that you know that there is, just everybody's getting what they need, if you know what I mean. There's just a little bit left over. Because like you said, if your corals are growing in a certain way and they don't have the food available to them, obviously it can stall everything, or even worse, it could starve them and cause them to retract.
Yep. Quick shout out to Ryan for the $5 super chat. Thank you very much, good sir. Off topic question: how long to keep reef fishless after a brook outbreak? Don't know how I got with new fish. I've never dealt with brook personally. I kind of half think it was around 6 weeks. Have Seymour or Michael, either of you guys had brook before?
We were talking about this the other day, weren't we, Seymour? What did you say was the suggested time for Brookanella?
Is it 6 weeks or 7 weeks?
Something like that, because it's not as long for brook as it is for white spot. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Paul is the one that gave the suggestion with the time frame. So I've never had it. Lucky.
I don't think I've had Brookanella. I've had velvet and white spot. I get white spot every other day. But
Yeah,
no,
I don't think it was Brooke. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone have Brooke anytime recently.
So
That,
Brooke is the
I've not
one
heard,
that
to be honest, you don't hear people mention it often, do you?
no.
yeah, you're right. I have to do a search for it now because I haven't heard about that in a while.
For some reason, 6 weeks is in my head, but I'm not 100% on that one. I've never personally had that issue before. I've never had white spots been the worst I've really ever had to deal with.
Just stick with the highest level that you've ever had. So if it's 12, go with 12.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Pretty much 2 months is probably safe. But yeah, definitely make sure it runs its complete cycle before you add anything else to the tank so it doesn't get transferred. I will research that one and get back to you because I'm not 100%. One other question that's I saw scroll by multiple times was asking about pods. So Refugium is by far probably the best one for pods. Next, I'm going to say is Chaeto Reactor, and next would probably be Turf Scrubber. I definitely have seen lots of pods in my Chaeto Reactor in the past. I have seen them in my Turf Scrubber as well. It wasn't as densely as the Chaeto Reactor, but all three of them definitely have pods and can sustain a certain level of pod culture.
Now, I have two mandarins. So I need a refugium to like breed enough pods for, mandarins. Now, Chaeto Reactor, you're gonna see pods in it, but not at the density. If you take out a handful of Chaeto out of your refugium and you sort of count or at least look at the density of pods versus a Chaeto reactor, I don't think you're going to see the same amount in a Chaeto reactor. So I like a refugium better for pods because I need to feed 2 mandarins in a 75-gallon tank.
Yep.
Well, I've got just a small handful of fish really in my size tank, but they're all wrasse. And as you can see right now, I'm not at home, and most of the times now I'm not at home, so my tank gets fed, very sparingly. I'm not home quite a lot to feed the fish, and I don't have people doing it for me. So the great thing about a refugium is you've seen yourself, and people that follow me have seen as well on videos and Instagram and stuff. My refugium is just packed when it comes to microfauna, copepods, anthropods, mysids. It's just teeming with them. And then you look in the system as well, you see them running in and out of the rocks. The wrasse are constantly all day long, just picking at the rocks, and you just see them strike, and then a dust cloud come out of the gills. So I probably wouldn't be able to get away with what I get away with when it comes to my feeding regime if it wasn't for the fact that I had a refugium. I don't like, say, for example, I'm having a new tank built at the moment, and the main focus of this new tank, although it's a lot smaller than what I've got now, the main focus is having a refugium. I'd say 2/3 of this, the new sump will be refugium.
Yep.
And then just be packing in a skimmer and whatever else if finger.
The essentials on top.
So like what Seymour said, refugiums for me, if you can have one, get one, because even if it's a smaller one, which in essence isn't probably going to do much for your nutrient levels, when it comes to the microfauna that it can add to your system, it's just worth it.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of it too. Now, the other thing is too, you can buy like GFO if you're trying to get rid of phosphates. If you have nitrates, you do stuff like carbon dosing. But Refugium, just algae is more of a natural, easier way, less interference, less messing with the tank. It's a good way to go.
Sometimes I feel like I need to support the Refugium with some sort of phosphate remover. It'll bring the nitrates down quite quickly, but the phosphates tend to, I think that's as well because of the types of food that I feed. Because obviously, depending on whatever, sometimes I'll be going for the convenience food, so I'll just be throwing flake in. But flake is, has high concentrations of phosphorus. So, obviously, I might be out competing the tank by adding more phosphorus than it can actually consume. So I think that might be why. But yeah, I do have to sort of like help the Refugium out sometimes with GFO or Roaphos or something like that.
Up to Go ahead, O.
I was going to say I have the same issue because then my nitrates are 0, but then I'll end up with 0.5 phosphates. I think at one point I had 0 nitrates and my phosphates are 1.6, which then it took like GFO to bring it down. And even now it's creeping up again while there's no nitrate. So I don't know what it is in my tank. Maybe it's the food or maybe it's I don't know what it is, but whatever it is in my system, it's unbalanced. and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm fine with every now and again just adding some GFO just to keep it, I'm fine with that. I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same. I'm finding that now I'm having to put Rowaphos maybe every other month, to sort of like to balance it out. Like I'm currently at 2 nitrate and 0.15 phosphate, or 1.2, I think it is phosphate. So my phosphates are relatively high, but my nitrates are relatively low. So, I every now and then I'll just throw some Rowaphos in just to
Balance
level
it back out. Yeah. So a
Yeah.
question from a minute ago was, does macroalgae consume CO2? Freshwater plants grow based on light, nutrients, and CO2. 100% the same thing. It will consume CO2, and that's actually why you get the pH boost from it. With the more intense light, the faster it's growing, the more CO2 it's consuming, which will raise your pH. So CO2 and pH are kind of like a sliding scale. So the higher the CO2, the lower the pH in your water. So 100%.
And also during the off periods, it also consumes oxygen, but not into higher levels. But it does also consume oxygen. People don't know that.
Good to know.
One thing I've seen, I've never experienced this, but I've seen like Sanjay on YouTube talk about it, and a few other people, is when you have like, let's say, a calcium reactor, and you have the output, exit right into like a refugium, you get the explosive growth from your refugium. Of course, eventually you'll run up against kind of what we said earlier, where if you don't have like iron and stuff, it'll slow down. But there's something about like CO2 that, gives refugiums like an explosive growth. And I've seen people recommend like put the output of your calcium reactor in your refugium to kind of mitigate the low pH. Sanjay was running a Pax Bellum, and he put the larger Pax Bellums, the giant one that costs like a couple of grand. It has actually like a fitting for you to put the exit from your calcium reactor right into the Chaeto reactor.
Yep.
And he said it was growing so fast he got tired of emptying it, so he took it out. Sanjay runs his tank with high nitrates, high phosphates. He doesn't worry about it. When he told me, you see him quote his nitrates and phosphates numbers, it's like sometimes 80 nitrates and like 2.0 phosphates, but he doesn't worry about it. But it was growing so fast that he said I couldn't be bothered to like clean it every week, every other week, so I just took it out.
Really, eh? Yeah, see, he has a giant system and has room for refugium, so that part's probably questionable. But yeah, that maintenance is definitely the one downfall of them, right? It's effort to unscrew the lid, pull it out, clean it, all that type of stuff. So takes a little bit of time investment to do it, which basically all of them are the refugium. But I'd say the Chaeto Reactors probably takes the longest to clean. Just to unscrew it.
One thing to think though, if you're not using Chaeto and you are using Clerpa like I am, is like my first experience with Clerpa is the Clerpa filled my Refugium, and I was like, yeah, I like this. I've got plenty of Clerpa and blah blah blah, and I got a bit lazy, and I didn't harvest it. I thought, no, I want lots of Clerpa in there because I want it all consuming. But what was happening, what I didn't realize, is it was still growing, but it was getting tighter and tighter and tighter inside. And then obviously light just simply could not penetrate it. So it went sexual. So, obviously due to my, light laziness of not harvesting, that actually backfired on me. So it is a good idea. Sometimes it's nice to think that you've got this nice packed and full Refugium, but, just get your hand in there, every once a week or something, and just get your hand in, give it to a friend, throw it in the bin, whatever. And just get rid of it. It's not too bad with Chaeto because you're not really got that problem. But if you are using Clerpa, don't get complacent with it. Make sure that you're on top of it.
I've given 3 people Chaeto in the last 2 days. My balls. I've literally been giving a big handful to like multiple people. There's still tons. It's been growing well, so it's okay. Cody Man was asking, since he's asked this twice, I think I saw this scroll by in the past. I'm in the process of redesigning 20 long sump for a 40 breeder. Good size. Without a fuge, I have 5 nitrates, 5 ppm nitrate, 0.15 phosphate. Should I use a 4-gallon free section for a fuge? Your nitrates are perfectly fine. Phosphates, they're a little high. I keep mine at 0.03 to 0.09. I kind of see as a good range for it. The easiest thing for you would just be a little bit of Chaeto, or not Chaeto. You could use Chaeto for sure, but because your nitrates are low, GFO or Chemi-Pure Blue would be, that's a carbon GFO all in one little bag. I usually like to use that in something like a nano just because it's easy. Would you put a refugium on a NEM only tank with 2 pert clowns and no corals? Depends on the size of the tank and how much you feed. Okay, so the purpose of a
I
refugium.
was just typing that
Yeah,
one.
okay. So the purpose of a refugium, an algae turf scrubber, Chaeto Reactor, all that stuff is to grow algae to absorb the nutrients in your water. Now, the whole purpose of getting these nutrients out is generally because most people is because they want to reduce the need and reliance on water changes. So if you do a water change, you're doing it to either add something in like trace elements or remove something like nutrients. So Chaeto is helping you with the remove nutrients part, so it reduces the need for it. So you could just do a water change, or you could have a big refugium type of thing and grow it that way. So now the only way to say if you needed a quote unquote was depend on how much you feed the tank and if there's a big nutrient issue. So a small nano tank, little water change might not be an issue. It's a decent sized tank. You got a sump with some space. I mean, refugium never hurts.
So I'm gonna bring up something. So on my little nano, on the nano tank, my son's nano, I was battling dino flagellates on that tank. It's a small nano, and I have like a very powerful. And I had terrible dino flagellates in that tank. And when I went on Reef Central and I asked Miss Fox and a few other people there, one of the first questions I got was, "What are your nutrient levels?" Because they've seen like over time, like tanks that have run extended periods of time with extra low nutrients. That's one of the things they see. It gets like there's an imbalance and there's a risk of a dinoflagellate outbreak. So I sort of reduced the. So by the way, that tank had 0 nitrates, 0 phosphates.
Mm-hmm.
I measured with the ultra low range phosphorus checker, and it got a 0. Like I think that's the first time I've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So I reduced the refugium light to 1 hour, half an hour per day, and the nutrients. I think it took like 6 weeks. Was it 4 weeks for the nutrients to go up, and the dinoflagellates went away. So there is like a danger, like your refugium light can be too powerful. That's definitely a thing. So right now I run that refugium light for 1 hour a night, and it's been phosphates at 0.1 and nitrates at 2. And I think I'm okay with that. I think I'll stick there.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So that is potential risk possible of dino if it's 0 nutrients at all, essentially.
Seymour,
yeah.
What's a 4x2x2 again in gallons?
120. Exactly 120.
120.
So
I can never remember, and everyone keeps asking me, and it's like I never remember what the size is.
So Exclusive Reese was just asking if I'd ever use phosphate E. He did say it's a liquid. It's most likely lithium chloride, which is a liquid.
I used to use it regularly until I got an ICP test back and my landfill was off the charts.
No.
So that was my method of phosphate control. I just had phosphate E, and just every now and then dose in a little bit because it's quite potent. It's expensive for a bottle. It's quite potent lithium, but that was my method. But then I did a Triton test and like. I wasn't whatever was putting in, only a tiny bit was coming back out. So I stopped that. So be very careful with lanthium. Try the thing with lanthium is I would always suggest like use lanthium to get your phosphates to a level that you're happy with, and then maintain. So either maintain with starting reducing phosphorus level foods, or maintain with a GFO or a thingy where you can just sort of like keep it ticking over, because obviously with lanthium you're going to be dosing quite often, which is a bit of a pain. And also as well as if you're not skimming it back out or removing it, then it's going to stay. So just use something like a GFO or something to keep you at that that happy medium.
So 2 things with lanthium chloride. One, you should always dose it somewhere like a filter sock because it will bind stuff. You don't want that getting into your tank with the fish and stuff. And the other thing is be careful, don't use too much or drop it too fast because that could also be dangerous.
And you can drop it very fast with lanthium, very fast. You can take nitrate phosphates of 1 to 0 in seconds.
Yeah.
So be very, very careful.
Yeah.
So I overdosed phosphate E. I actually threw it out. I overdosed it. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention and I didn't look at the capfuls. And when I dosed it, the water was so cloudy. And then because I don't run filter socks, so my system isn't set up for me to run filter socks or any kind of mechanical filtration, it took like a while before it got cloudy. And I don't think the fish were happy. They were lethargic. So I didn't mess with that. Of course, I got rid of the phosphates because by that time, everything precipitate. When you're supposed to dose one capful and you do like 5 capsules, of course it worked. But
Yeah.
I don't. I think I'll stick to GFO, which is safer.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize, I didn't read the instructions, and I didn't realize that you need to have like really good mechanical filtration in order to get the best out of lanthanum, because it just precipitates the phosphate into like little ball, and you need to kind of filter them out of the
Capture it.
system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors that there can be issues for certain fish with sensitive gills, like wrasses and stuff. So you gotta be a little bit careful to make sure it's in a sock and stuff like that. So, word of warning, no personal experience, but I've heard stories. I've
not been too bad because obviously my full tank is RAS.
Yeah.
And then I've never lost any RAS.
Nice.
In that way, so.
Perfect. Okay, this one's almost scrolling off the screen. So Ray's Reef was asking, can you run a turf scrubber and a Refugium? Yes, because I'm doing that right now. In theory, one of them might possibly win long-term or outcompete the other. They're competing over some nutrients, but at the same time, they also consume slightly different stuff because they are different types of algae. So you can do it, but eventually one of them may outcompete the other.
When I was selling my Pax Bellum, someone, I don't remember who, told me not to sell it. I really think it was Mike told me not to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish I didn't sell it, because I think at this point, instead of using GFO, I think what I would have done is just put the Pax Bellum on every time you needed like a top up. Every time it gets out of whack, you just put it on for like a couple weeks, every couple of months, and then take it off. But I sold it because
it's like a concentrated, sort of like concentrated algae removal method in it, because it's so compact and the light is, so penetrative, if that's a word. You can do it that way. Plus, as well, the Pax Bellum algae reactors like the shizzle. So I probably told you not to get rid of it just for that reason. It's a good night. You can put it on the side of your flipping bed as a nightlight. It's brilliant.
Well,
it looks cool.
They were in demand, and the company cannot produce them enough to sell them. So I think somebody gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. So but now I wish I still had it.
Yeah.
I wish I still had it.
It's nice to keep stuff so you can change it and mix it up.
I don't have space, Dev. I don't have a garage.
Yeah, that's fair. Clearwater scrubbers. I believe in a conversation, because back to the one about Refugium versus turf scrubber. I think he said after about a year it finally outcompeted and killed off his Chaeto. I think. If you let me know if that's correct, but I kind of think that's what I remember. That was interesting. I've been curious to see which one would win eventually. But it's a long study.
When I was running Caulerpa, and the thing is, we keep saying Caulerpa. There's a couple of different types of Caulerpa. The one I was running, it looks like a really tall blade of grass that it needed to be anchored to the substrate. And I like the way it looked. I went to a fish store one time and they had like a display Refugium with the and I just got scared of just everyone's experience with it going sexual, that I just ripped it out. But the Caulerpa was choking out the Chaeto. Yeah, it was choking out the Chaeto because it grew so fast, and then it when you have high nutrients and you're giving like all the perfect environment that we've discussed. I think the Caulerpa, at least the strain I was running, it just went crazy. And the Chaeto grows in like a little ball, and the ball gets bigger, but the Caulerpa just expands. It takes up more room.
So
my Caulerpa is literally choked out. It obviously. So what happened with mine was I had a Refugium just of Chaeto, but previously when the Calliope went sexual, I did the same thing. I binned a lot. I was like, whoa, I'm not messing about with that stuff anymore, and I got rid of everything and I threw it all away. Like cleaned the sump, well, as I thought I cleaned some, and just started the Refugium again with only Chaeto. But there must have been a leaf, a root, just something left over from the Calliope, and now the Calliope is just filled the sump out, and you can't even. I don't even think there's any Chaeto left, and it's ridiculous, that stuff. Honestly, it's brilliant. It's brilliant if you keep on top of it, but if you don't keep on top of it, it can backfire on you.
Okay,
I've got a very small leafed one. Very small leafed.
So, I had to get rid of the sump. It's when I changed from the Red Sea sump and got the other sump. That's when I finally got rid of the Calliope because it kept popping up every now and again. So until I kind of just dumped everything and then started with like clean Chaeto I got from someone else, that's when like I started, because Mike is right. Like you'll think you cleaned it out and then all of a sudden you see like a little leaf somewhere and it just comes back and you don't notice it until like, you're like, where did this come from?
Yeah, honestly, it's so sneaky, and like I said, it's great. Obviously,
it grows
down
fast.
to 2. It grows fast. I'm down to 2 nitrates from 25, so it does its job. But like I said, I got a little bit complacent and I let it grow and grow and grow, and because it had nowhere to grow, it just grew tighter and tighter until the light couldn't penetrate it, and then obviously it just it ended up just going sexual, and everything it's took out of the tank, it's just gone, have it back, all of it.
Well,
you know what I mean? So
the one risk is if it ever gets into your display tank, then it could be a bit of an issue. Now, if you look in terms of growth speed, I mean, Chaeto's the slower grower of the bunch. Next, I'm guessing, is Calliope. And then the faster growing one would be hair algae, which would be something in turf scrubber. So that's, now generally, if you look at how fast they grow, that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of like why, like a turf scrubber, for instance, you can get a lot more growth for its size versus in a sump with Chaeto. You can get the same amount of export to an extent, but you need a much larger area. Now, Calliope is kind of in the middle because it grows a lot faster than Chaeto. Now, as long as it doesn't go sexual or make its way in your display tank and start growing off the rocks and everything else, then that could be a whole nother issue. Now,
unless you've got tangs in it, it's free food.
Free fish food. Yeah.
I see a lot of people do that with the Calliope, Calliope, sorry, the Chaeto. Because Chaeto's pretty easy to, if it doesn't get used, it's pretty easy to get back out of a display. And I see people like throw bits of Chaeto into the tank, especially if we've got tangs, and you just see the tang sort of like slurping it up like spaghetti.
I don't know if I've actually tried feeding my tangs Chaeto. The odd bit does make
one strand in.
The odd one does make it in if I'm like messing around my Refugium. It must be eating it. Either that, it's going back down the filter. I'll try it later. I'm curious. I'll just hold a little bit in there and see who goes for it.
Film it. It's like a spaghetti dinner. It's nice.
Yeah. Spaghetti for the tangs. Well, that sounds rather lovely. Okay, what else we got in here? I'm just scrolling through, seeing what I missed for questions. But the point, someone's asking about deep sand beds, slightly off topic, but isn't the point of a deep sand bed not to get air? So how would one accomplish getting rid of detritus without disturbing the anotoxic bacteria, completing the nitrogen cycle? Yes, the whole point of a deep sand bed is that low oxygen zone. Detritus will generally settle on top. It's not necessarily going to work its way down into the deep sand bed. And generally, there's little critters and creatures and pods and stuff that will be on there and usually consume or eat it.
Oh, I had paused and left. Whoever's asking about a deep sand bed, do not. The first 4 years of when I kept reef tanks, for some reason, I don't know what, it's one of those things where you decide to go with a method and then you find everything to defend it, even when you don't want to. And you know you're doing the wrong thing. There's so many things that that are so much easier to maintain these day and age than going with a deep sand bed. We've spoken about, like, if you have spot, you can do a small Refugium, and if that doesn't work, you can easily pull it out and do a Chaeto reactor, or both, or do an algae scrubber. If you go with a deep sand bed, when it's time for you to pull it out, Like it's in today's day and age, you don't need a deep sand bed at all to process. Skimmers are better, Refugium lights are better, Chaeto reactors are better. I, there's not many times when I tell people like don't necessarily do something. I try to be, like, hey, it's your money, and I think, but a deep sand bed, under no circumstances. I think anybody in this day and age should go with a deep sand bed. Absolutely
That
not.
they should not. Yes.
When
Should not.
when I was taking that tank apart, we literally had to leave the apartment for the day. Like that's how bad the smell and stuff was. I had to go get a mask and come back. That's how bad the thing was. I was taking that sand apart, like deep sand bed. I think someone told me hydrogen sulfide. It smelled like rotten eggs. Like that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, nope. Stay away from it.
Also, as well, a deep sandbed for a lot of people isn't actually truly a deep sandbed. You've got to be 6 inches plus for it to actually provide anaerobic zones. So when you've got a deep sandbed of maybe 2 to 4 inches or something like that, what a lot of people do nowadays is, it's like that, but it's not actually doing anything. All it is just a big toilet. And it's not doing anything for you. So if you are going to go deep sandbed, it's got to be deep, 6 inches plus for it to create anaerobic zones.
Yep.
8 inches. 8 inches. Is that right?
Yep. I have some books
8 inches.
I have some books I bought from Dr. Ron Shimek, which tells you about how to do a deep sand bed. It also requires a lot of maintenance because it has to have the right particle size. You need to have the right critters. You need to buy the right worms to go through it, to process it. So it's not something that's like you just have a deep sand bed and you leave it. It requires maintenance. And then when it doesn't work, it's a pain to take it out. If you try Refugium, Chaeto Reactor, Algae Scrubber, you can go from either of these methods to the other with very little impact to your system. And the reason you're doing like a deep sand bed is to process nitrates and phosphates. So you can do lanthanum chloride, Refugium. Like there's so many things. There's so many things you could do. Don't do it. Just don't do it, please.
Also, as well, also today with modern day reefing, we've got various different medias available now. So a lot of these medias now, that the way that they're made, they have anaerobic zones in these medias. So you can simulate a deep sandbed without actually having a deep sandbed with the various different medias that are available on the market now. It's not necessary. It's like, say, I use the example is do you bake your own bread? Most people will answer no. You know what I mean? It's like they'll still eat bread, but they don't bake it themselves and they'll just go out and buy it. And it's the same scenario, sort of like with certain methods of this hobby now, is they're outdated. Don't get me wrong, they'll still work, but there's easier ways of doing it now. There's easier ways of getting bread. You just go buy it, you don't have to bake it yourself. And same with, you can use medias, you can use all of these different things to achieve something that, it's a little bit safer as well. So, so yeah, deep sand beds, leave.
I've never done one. The powerheads creating a mountain on one edge of my tank is the closest I've come to a deep sand bed. But that wasn't even truly deep enough, so.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to get them deep, and then like what Seymour was saying is you require maintenance, and then obviously, you get, it's one of those, if you get a pocket of like nitrogen in there, and when it builds up, you have a nice big pocket, it gets disturbed and it just goes poof into your tank. You can have some problems if it's if it's concentrated as well. It can wipe your tank out. So it's not worth doing with the modern day products that are available now. It's not a necessity anymore. It's not needed anymore. That was a necessary thing for the time. Times change.
It's true. Stuff does change a lot in this hobby over the last few years. Just throwing this one out there because it's on my mind. Yeah, I got a Renepo to make a ReefDudes coupon code. Boop, boop. So if anyone is after turf scrubbers, Refugium lights, that type of stuff, if you use the ReefDudes coupon code, you get 10% off. Anyway, so that's in the description below, as well as links. But yeah, I was excited to get a ReefDudes code. It's one-time only use, though, so you can use it once for your login. I don't even think there's a minimum purchase, whatever. Doesn't count on map stuff aside from that. You get 10% off a new toy.
Do they deliver to the UK?
I don't know, maybe. They'll ship to Canada. They probably will. There's a whole slew of places if you look at the countries.
Wait, 10% off, even like Refugium lights?
Yeah, buddy. As long as it's not a map item, like where they're not allowed to.
Oh,
So it depends on the lights. Some might, some might not. So, anyways, some options. Throwing it out there, sharing the love.
all right.
I like talking people into ReefDudes codes. It's one of my new missions. Got to share the love back. Now with now Clerpa, there you guys are talking about that quite a bit. There is a bunch of different types of Clerpa. I haven't used the big feathery type. I think it was like grape Clerpa, like there's like a vine with little leaves on it. I had that one in my sump, and that grew like crazy. I pulled that one out every couple weeks. I don't even know how it got in my tank. I had a little chunk.
Was it leaves or bubbles?
No, it wasn't the grape one, but it was like a vine though. It was like a vine with little leaves.
Sounds like the one I've got, like really like
tiny leaves,
like probably not even as big as your little fingernail leaves. Yeah.
It's just like big long branches. But yeah, that one grew like mad. It was crazy how fast that one grew.
That's the one I can't get rid of.
No. Lisa's fishbowl. Hey, reef dudes. My yellow tang has ick. I've been quarantining him, but he was my new 55. Saltwater, should I treat the 55 with ItchX? If you have coral in your tank, do not treat it. Most of the ick medications have copper in it, which is very bad for reef tanks, so I would not advise treating that in your tank. What you can do is turn up the temperature a little bit and just speed up its life cycle. Now, with ick, it's generally a little parasite that'll be on the fish, so it'll fall off into your sand, and then it could make its way back onto a fish again. So generally, the safest way to ensure it's out of your system is take all the fish out and let your system run without fish for, I don't know if it's 6 weeks, whatever the life cycle is. But anyways, it needs to have no host for that period of time. So yeah, I would not advise treating a tank that you plan on putting coral or inverts into the future. No coral, just fish. Okay. If you plan on putting coral, I still would not treat the tank, just because copper will stay in there for a while. So if it's
also as well,
fish only system, have at her. But if it's ever going to do coral, don't. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just saying, if you also remember, if you have a fish in your system, in your fish system, and it's got ick, and you take the fish out and put it in quarantine, you've got to remember that once that fish has gone through quarantine and you put it back, it's like taking your hand out of a fire, putting it underwater to put out the fire, and then putting it back in the fire again. You've got to treat both. So if you've got a tank with ick, then you have to do some sort of fallow period or something to starve out the parasite, especially if it's a reef tank. If you're running fish only and you don't ever intend to put coral in there, then you can use a medication or something like that. But I personally wouldn't, not even with a fish only tank, because you never know. What I mean? You never know. It's better to just put everything in different places if you can. Like, obviously me, it's not like a bit pot kettle black for me, because, I don't do fallow periods. I've still not done a fallow period. And it's one of those where I just run the gauntlet, really. It's a big kettle of fish, do you know what I mean, to go through. But yeah, definitely, I wouldn't suggest, like what ReefDudes has just said, is I wouldn't suggest putting any medical treatment in your tank, because you just don't know what you want to do next month. You might see this one coral and think, oh, gotta have it.
Let's
and
try
you
it.
just went, I've copper dosed my tank, I've got no chance. That's it, game over. You know what I mean?
Not worth it. Just with the life cycle of itch question, so Steve and Guy Host both confirmed 72 days. So that's how long you'd want to keep your fish out of there to make sure the parasite dies off. It has no host to hop back onto. How do you get pods from your Refugium to your display tank? So as water flows through your Refugium, your turf scrubber, your Chaeto Reactor, any of those type of things, there is little pods that are going to go for a little ride with the flow, and they'll eventually make it to return pump and back into the tank. So it's just going to happen naturally. Some people will take, I've seen this with all three systems, where they'll take their Chaeto or their Algae, their screen, whatever, and dangle it in the tank, let the fish eat it, or they'll shake it off and let some of those pods fall into the tank. So you can manually do it, or a smaller amount will make their way eventually just with the water flow.
Also, as well, the tank itself will have its own population of pods, depending on, the consumption rate, depending on your fish, how much the fish eat it. But, obviously the pods come from somewhere, it's not like this magical Refugium thing, that pods just exist in a refugium and nowhere else. They have to travel from the refugium to get there. You know, they come to life and whatever else, you know, in the display as well. It's just that because the refugium there isn't any predators. That's obviously the word.
It's their safe haven.
It's their safe haven. So to us, when we see this abundance of microfauna in the refugium, it's just because there's nobody there to eat them. That's why we don't see it in the display.
Yep. Nope. Exactly. And now refugiums basically, yeah, to that point, are somewhere where there's no predator. So, you know, your drain pipes, your everything, there could be tons of little miniature refugiums within your system. Like they're technically all over the place. I mean, our common term means we use it for growing algae, but all over the place. Lisa, thank you very much. And if you guys are enjoying this, as always, smash that like button. Now today, I might do it soon, we're also going to be giving away the Clearwater Scrubbers, Turf Scrubber. If you guys saw my video a few weeks ago, that's the one I've been running on my tank lately, and it's been growing like a champ. And we are going to be giving it away today.
Are you giving it to me today? Thanks.
Did you enter the contest?
Yes.
All right, well then maybe.
I would go say no. Yes.
All right, there was 800 actions and 215 people had entered the contest. Now, the question is, how many people should we draw to add to the wheel? Pick a number.
20.
20? All right. Let's edit this to draw 20 names. I like the wheel. That's fun. Prizes.
Right. Well, now that the topic section's over, now it's giveaway time. It's bedtime for me. It's 5 past midnight now.
Whew.
And
thanks for spending your evening with us.
No worries. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you for letting me join. And can I just do a quick plug?
Plug away.
Obviously, anybody that follows Aaron's Aquarium will notice that there hasn't been a live stream on Friday recently. As you can see right now, I'm not at home. I'm spending more time out and about at the moment with my job. So it's not as easy for me to do a live stream every Friday. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to do the Aaron's Aquarium Friday night live stream on the last Friday of every month. So I'm more or less going to guarantee that if I can throw some more in the meantime, then I will do. But last Friday of every month, Friday night live stream, be there, be square. Right.
There you go.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Michael.
All right. See you later.
All right. I just drew a batch of names.
All right.
Which I am consolidating. Sorry, buddy. I don't see your name. All right. So, modify. Paste. Replace choices. And apply. All right, we have the wheel, the good old wheel. So congratulations to all the people that made it onto the list. Survived. Okay, where'd my chat window go? There we go. Natal. All right, guys, so simple reef, no budget reef. Okay, so we are going to draw now and see who wins the Clearwater Scrubber. Now, this is a pretty sweet prize, whoever wins, so I want to see photos of it after, see this baby in use. Okay, first spin. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, Jacob. Sorry, Jacob. Now, if any of you guys are actually watching right now, and on the wheel, and you're in the chat, I want to know. I'm going to start, in future contests, I think I might make a rule where you got to be here, because it's way more fun when you have people in the chat that are actually on it. It's way more dramatic. It'll be good. So we're going to work on this for a future one. I believe it's at C100. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Nick. Just because you're ace dev. Thank you, Nick. I much appreciate that. And Nick, I haven't had you on a live stream in ages. We're way overdue. But thank you very much, fine sir. So yeah, so I believe it's C100 for the turf scrubber. And that's the same, basically the same model I've been using. And my tank's like 160-ish. and it's been doing a fabulous job on it so far. You're asking, how do you enter? My video from 2 weeks ago about the tank update had a contest along with it. So if you were watching that and you're in it and you entered, I think 200 and something people did. And now we're down on the finalist. So Tina's asking, so Essence, would it be better for me to have a scrubber than run a Refugium with Chaeto? That really depends. If the size of, if you have a smaller Refugium, it depends. Okay, so one of my main reasons originally was because I wanted to use that chamber for frags. If turf scrubbers, in my opinion, they're more efficient for their size. You get a lot more bang for your buck in a small package. Where with a Refugium, you need a much bigger section or a very powerful light to kind of compete it. So they both have their pros and cons like anything else with it. So they all, at the end of the day, are exporting nutrients. Some of them are more efficient, they're more space saving, some are more work, some are less work. So they all have their pros and cons. All right, next wheel on the spin. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, sorry, Mike, if you're on. Yeah, when nutrients are measured in ppm, that sizing doesn't work. It's really how much you put into your tank and how much you're pulling out of it. It's tank's good. All right, sorry, Mike. Next spin. Oh, Nick. Sorry, Nick. Oh, sorry, Mike. Wait a minute here. I just want to make sure. Mic's off. I'll make sure it's actually taking the names off. No, it's not. All right, this is not removing the names. So, remove choices once landed on. All right, restart the wheel. Apply changes. All right, the one person that got knocked off, you didn't actually, because we're back in. All right, Susan, or Sean, sorry, Sean. Sorry, Jacob. Ah, sorry, Mike. I have a Sapporo Refugium 200. I have no idea what that one is. I'll have to look that up later, so we'll get back to that one. Jamie Roland. Sorry, Jamie. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we can start to read the names now. It's getting lower. And then Nico Barriga. Sorry, Nico. Rick Rickler. Sorry, Rick. Scrubber algae feeds based upon ppm, same as the test. Dilution makes that not the same input. There you go. And spin the wheel, getting down there. Oh, Edward, sorry, Edward. What's the giveaway? This is for a clear water algae turf scrubber. And. Oh, Mike. Sorry, Mike. Next spin on the list. Josh. Sorry, Josh. So I haven't actually seen yet if anyone's jumping up and down in the chat because they're on the finalist or not.
I can tell you that I don't see anybody jumping up and down.
I know. Ah, David. We're getting down there, oh. Getting down to the wire. Kevin. Sorry, Kev. Does the discount code work for the turf scrubbers? As long as there's no set map pricing, then yes, it should. I believe the only restriction was stuff that had a map pricing that said they're not allowed to sell it below a certain price. So yeah, 10% off for most things. It's worth a try. But yeah, so the one from Marine Depot, the ReefDudes code, it's one time per account. So you could be a returning customer or a new customer, it doesn't matter, but it's only one time use then after that. So save it, something good. Huh?
Who got Nick?
Who got Nick?
No, I said there's someone on it that's Nick.
Oh, I don't know. I could look at their email, but they only put their first name.
Oh,
Yeah,
you have info.
yeah, I know. I have their whatever they enter into the contest. So what I do is I tell the contest platform to pick, you know, the 18-20 winners, and then I put those as the finalists onto the wheel. It's more fun that way.
Otherwise, it'll be a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I would be sitting here for hours. Paul Muller. Sorry, Paul. Dun, 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 dun. Corey Simpson. Sorry, Corey.
Now, the thing is,
Oh,
these people could be people we know on YouTube, but because they're using real names.
Kyle. I know Kyle. He actually won a t-shirt not too long ago. Lucky guy, made on here twice. Richard. Sorry, Richard. And Eugene. Sorry, Eugene. All right, it's down to Kyle or no name Nick. Dun dun dun. All right, whoever this one picks is not the winner. Oh, sorry, Nick. Kyle. Congratulations, Kyle. I'm pretty sure you're normally on my screen, but I don't think you are today. Congratulations, and I owe you a t-shirt and a turf scarf. Whew. Well, that's pretty awesome. Congratulations. That was a good contest. And a sweet prize. So congratulations, buddy. All right, guys. Questions? Anything else that we missed or didn't get to? Also want to throw a big shout out to Clearwater Scrubbers. Thank you very much for helping out with the giveaway. That is pretty awesome. Mighty kind and generous. Much appreciated. And if you didn't win and you want one, Marine Depot also sells them. And there's a discount code, which may or may not work on Scrubbers. I don't know if there's map or not. But something to check out for sure. So congratulations. I know that guy is on my stream a lot too, so I'm sad he's not here.
What's his screen name?
I don't know. It might just be Kyle.
Okay.
I'll look later. I'm assuming that's the same one that I won a shirt last week.
Wait, 2 weeks in a row? Oh man,
that is a horseshoe, if you ask me. Sweet. No problem. Thanks, Lisa. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this, smash that like button. If you have any questions that we didn't get to today, you can always ask later on the stream or something non-related to the topic. You can head over to reefdudes.com/ask and ask me there. And if it's something simple, I usually just respond. If it's something bigger, it might turn into a live stream or a topic, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to shut her down. I still got to run to the store for a close and get some acrylic for another project I'm working on. So if you guys enjoyed it, as always, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and that bell, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream.